Hello, everyone, and welcome to this virtual partner summit. My name is Julien Bertin. I'm the Azure BG lead for the MEA region, and it's a pleasure for me to host you to this Azure session. And I'm very, very excited to be part of this virtual partner event because, as you know, partner are so important for us in providing to our customers the best possible experience when going to Azure. And of course, you are part of the extended Azure family, right? With all the developers and certified engineers that you have and that are doing a fantastic job in helping us catering for our joint customers. So thank you for that. Hopefully my presentation will give you a glimpse of the priorities that we have for Azure, for MEA, for fiscal year 21, for fiscal year 21 and onwards, right? And hopefully I will be there as well for you, with you to answer some Q&A along the way. So hopefully this is useful to you, right? You know, as economies become more independent, large-scale events can introduce volatility and uncertainty to a global market. And over time, as you see from the chart that I'm presenting to you, the frequency of those events has accelerated. And the latest example that we have attended, that we are all living through, is obviously the COVID-19 pandemic, right? How businesses respond in time of uncertainty is as varied as the businesses themselves, right? And we see many different types of response from supply chain, trying to optimize and manage the risks, to a financial institution, again, looking at mitigating risk and predicting the future better. You know, various type of response. But some of the common traits that we've seen is that many companies are still slowing down operation or are trying to operate more cost effectively, while others are leaning into new opportunities that may not have otherwise existed before, right? Across this entire spectrum, the ability to cost effectively adapt and scale to rapidly changing conditions and manage underlying risk is actually paramount. That is why we've recently seen a shift in the key drivers for cloud migration, right? And I will walk you through and show you how migration remains an important motion for us, right? In the past, the functional benefits of performance and manageability motivated customers to move workloads to the cloud. With COVID, the functional elements of cost saving and security have been the prevalent factors. And this is a change that we have seen in the last 6 months with the pandemic and the acceleration of the pandemic. And I will show you how our priorities and different sales plays that we are working together on with you are actually responding to those changing factors, right? Customers today seek efficiency, predictability of cost, and reliability for their day-to-day operations. With the economic downturn forecast through FY21, hopefully not as bad as we expected, but still there, we expect to see a rapid cloud adoption to continue. And we've seen this in the last 6 months, right? Cloud adoption is been going up, and we see many customers accelerating their digital transformation. And as Satya has said, in many instances, actually 3 months of pandemic has actually, you know, transformed the market as 3 years of digital transformation before, right? And this trend continues, right? But the customer will do so in ways to reduce their IT cost, optimize existing applications, and deliver rapid time to value projects. Yeah, so we see ROI going, you know, lower. Before the typical ROI time frame would be like 6, 7. 12 months, sometimes 2 years. Now we see this much shorter. We see people who want ROI over 3 months, over 5 months, right? Because of those pressure on the cost, right? We expect longer term innovation projects and complex engagements requiring significant consultant services work to be deferred. And this also comes back to what I was sharing with you when we see ROI windows shrinking over time. And as the fundamental of business are being put under pressure, we see this even more, right? But fundamentally, our customers' engagement model is made up of 3 priorities, right? Enable customer to successfully use cloud technology and adapt to the rapid pace of innovation, migrate customers' existing application to Azure and optimize, and innovate new application and modernizing existing systems on Azure, right? And that leads me to the triangle that you see in front of you, right? For FY21, those priorities that you have seen last year as well and the year before continue to be paramount, but they will take the flavors that I was mentioning before, particularly when we look at cost reduction, and when we look at protecting the business. And I will share with you that migration application and optimization remains the largest motion, and you will see how we are looking at new workloads and new environments that we didn't necessarily touch before, working with some of our partners and together with you as well to bring those environments on Azure. Innovation, app modernization and data estate modernization are two obviously big pillars of innovation, and we know how important it is for customers to modernize their application environment to make sure that they can continue to benefit from the latest and greatest in tech, right? And then enable together our customers for successful cloud use. We see a correlation between the level of knowledge of customers and their adoption to the platform. And as we know, because Azure is all about using the platform successfully, it's very, very important that we continue to skills. And I will walk you through some of the priorities that we have around scaling. So if I give you no more details on the triangle, and you can see here the underlying topics and the underlying sales play that we will continue to focus on in FY21, but with the flavor that I was mentioning before, the cost saving becoming at the core, and you see this with the yellow square on the chart, and then the immediate crisis focus areas that we have seen. And I will start with that. If you look at the migration, what we've seen in the last 6 months is a spike in Windows Virtual Desktop utilization. It was obvious that with every one of us working from home and the pressure obviously of social distancing putting on our businesses, what customers have done, they have looked for solutions to remotely connect their workers and their employees and their partners and customers together. So there is nothing best than virtual desktop solutions to do that, right? Because it enables literally from a screen or a very efficient laptop or desktop to literally load a virtual desktop environment for your employees and make sure they're up and running. Same for your customers and partners. So this continues to be a motion that we are focusing on, and we are working with some partners on that. And our partners later during the summit will obviously present to you the details of those solutions, but that remains very important. It's also a cost saving because a lot of customers have realized that you don't necessarily need the footprint of the existing infrastructure that you have to host your employees. Some employees could indeed work from home and still be very efficient by connecting them through Windows Virtual Desktop. The other motions that remain key and strategic for us, particularly in the spirit of cost savings and optimizing operations during the pandemic and to respond better to the crisis, are Windows SQL Server migration. This remains core for us, and we continue to encourage you to look within your customer base, within your partner base, within the people you're working with, as to ways to bring those workloads into Azure. And remember, we have programs such as hybrid benefits that enable customers to significantly reduce the impact of the migration financially, right, by leveraging those hybrid benefits on the licensing schemes, particularly for SQL, right? Obviously, Linux and open source DBs remains a big growth pillars for us, and we've seen tremendous adoption in those technology. And again, cost savings is paramount here. You know how much benefits you have on open source, and the fact that the licensing scheme is obviously close to zero. Support is still there, but it can help customers optimize. And we've seen, key motion going after some competitors, to migrate them to open source. One of the key strategic motion that we started 2 years ago with the partnership is obviously SAP on Azure. If you remember, last year we've announced Embrace, which is a partnership between SAP and Microsoft. And this partnership is really connecting the two companies together, right? From the sales to the executives, we have regular interactions with them. We are working with some of you already today. And I know for many customers that I've met and spoken to, that SAP has always been a challenge for them when it comes to managing the environment, being reasonably monolithic, being long-term, and obviously very critical, right? So enabling those environments to be migrated to Azure is something that customers are looking for. Why? They want to reduce costs, they want to streamline and facilitate operation and support. And obviously with the Embrace program, we have full support from SAP and all partners, some of you on the phone today, to help our customer in that journey. We have a significant amount of engagement that we are working on, and we are looking at expanding that in the region, right? Hybrid cloud solution as well is a focus. We've announced Azure Arc, if you remember last year. This obviously is something that we want to position because we continue to see customers having the need for keeping on-prem certain environments, particularly legacy applications that are not necessarily candidates for migration to Azure. For those customers, typically hybrid cloud solution will be one of the focus area and sales play that we are looking at. If I look at innovate now, in innovation, modernizing .NET apps is something that we really want to go after, and we need you in that journey. You know that we have 35 million websites running worldwide, .NET-based websites. All those are candidates to go on Azure and migrate to App Service with all the benefits that you get migrating. Security, maintenance, cost of operation being dramatically downgraded, and access to the latest type of technology. And associated to that is obviously to migrate the database that supports those websites. Now, in this case, the sales play for us is obviously SQL, but also third-party databases, right? Because we have partnership with pretty much all the open source database providers, Postgres and Mongo, Cosmos as well. So all those are potential candidates to migration. And usually when our customers undertake the task of modernizing the application, they need to modernize the data estate, right? This is something that goes together. So we encourage you again to look within your customer base, all the customers that have an online presence, what type of web service they're using today, and you will be surprised by how many are still on legacy framework for web services. Those are all potential candidates again for Azure, and this will be one of our sales play, right? We have obviously also we are extensively working with startups in the cloud native, right? That we see. We have a big scene in Middle East and Africa, in many geographies where we see startups coming up, and they are obviously cloud native. So working with containers, Kubernetes remains a priority and a focus for us, right? Linking this to the open source database solutions that I was mentioning earlier. Analytics and AI is obviously a big play for us, particularly if you look at attaching Synapse to Power BI. We've introduced Synapse last year. You remember that. Synapse is obviously a great data feeder for all the Power BI customers that we have. So again, for all of you on the phone, think about how many of your customers are using Power BI. It's a fantastic tool. There is nothing better for the Power BI customers to have their data fed through Synapse, right? And that is obviously something that I'm encouraging you to look at. In terms of enable, I would like to draw your attention on a couple of programs and framework that we've launched recently, right? The Cloud Adoption Framework, which is something that it's a frame that helps you standardize the way you walk your customers through the adoption of cloud, particularly around migrate. So this is a great framework. It enables you to save cost and save time for your customers and yourself. Well architected, which is a new program that we are introducing to make sure that environments that we are migrating to the cloud are properly sized, financially, obviously, for our customers, but also properly sized in terms of are they meeting the SLA, right? When they were on-prem, if it's 3.9, 5.9s, are we meeting the right SLA with the current architecture that we are proposing to our customers? Obviously, we are working extensively with GitHub. As you know, GitHub is a great vehicle for us to talk to most of the developers of the world. So we are encouraging you to work directly with GitHub, become a partner with GitHub as well, and continue the certification journey, right? If I look into the opportunity for application and infrastructure, into a little bit more details, one thing that I would like to draw your attention on is the bottom right-hand side of this slide, is the BCDR workload. One thing that we've seen coming up during the pandemic, and it was very apparent, particularly at the beginning, customers realized that they do not necessarily have access to their premises anymore. So what happens when one of their server or one of their hardware components in their data center fails? They don't have access, so they cannot necessarily replace that failing component on time and respect their SLAs. So cloud, in that regard, became, a very attractive solution for those type of customers and scenarios, particularly replication solution and backup solution and technologies to help those customers make sure that even if they don't have access to their on-prem site, they can still fail over to a remote site managed by a third party and get the benefit of that. So we have a set of workloads that we are looking after, particularly around networking, disaster recovery, backup, and security that continues to be paramount for us. And obviously the team later today and in the next 2 days during the summit will walk you through some of those solutions. But these remain in high demand, particularly in regions of Africa and in the Middle East area, right? If I move to the next slide, I mentioned some of that, but I want to reinforce them, right? We have a couple of unbeatable offers to reduce the cost, and I'm talking here about the TCO, right, of Azure and the technology for our customers. And remember how important cost will become for our customers, during the pandemic and potentially after, given where the economy is going, right? So I mentioned Azure Hybrid Benefits. I want to reinforce on that. For Windows Server customers and SQL Server customers, this is a great way for them to reduce the migration costs and to reduce the licensing costs when they migrate to Azure. If you are not familiar with that program, I urge you please to get in touch with your PDM or get in touch with your Microsoft contact, and we will be happy to provide you more information about that, right? All right, what we call reserve instance or reserve capacity is another way for you and your customers to reduce their footprint of Azure. We have dev and test pricing, which can again save up to 55% versus list price when you are setting up specific test and dev environment. And we have extended security updates for most of our service on Azure. And those 4 components together can significantly reduce the financial footprints of technology for your customers, right? And these are key to our sales play for FY21. If I move to data and AI, and I want to spend a little bit of time on data and AI in the next 5 minutes, you know how important data is becoming, right? If you look at today, everything we set up, and even the cloud itself, right, is a way for us to process data and get insight from that data and transform the data into information that can be valuable for our businesses and our customers' businesses, right? And in that regard, we have a couple of motions that we are focusing and I want to mention them to you. The first one is SQL Server migration. We have one of the largest SQL on-prem install base in the Middle East and Africa region. Most of you on the phone here as partners, you have sold in the last couple of years or maybe longer, you have sold SQL to different customers, right? It's the largest used database that we have. SQL on-prem is a great conversation opener with your customer. Why am I saying this? Because today what we see, many customers want to implement AI. They see the benefits of AI. They see the benefits of how artificial intelligence and analytics can bring returns. How can they can better screen their customers? How they can better predict their business? How can they can save costs by doing predictive maintenance, for example, predictive analytics. The challenge is if you want to get the business benefits of all those new solutions that I mentioned, AI and analytics, you need to have a modern data warehouse to support that. There is no way customers on their existing SQL or on the existing data environments, when the data is fragmented, is leveraging very old technology, there is no way they will be able in real time to benefit from those business outcome that those new technology can bring them. And we've seen this in many instances. I've been involved with the team in many projects that are unfortunately stalled, AI projects, particularly analytics projects as well, that are stalled because customers realize that they do not have the underlying data estate capable of supporting these new technologies. So my advice to all of you on the phone today is look at your base of customers, look at what technology they're using for data estate and engage in those conversations. Particularly if you start to do data center migration, engage very early in talking about how we can at the same time modernize the data estate so that customers can benefit from the technologies such as AI, such as analytics, such as cognitive search, face recognition, and all the beautiful services that are embedded in Azure AI, right? If you look at data and AI and the way we are addressing the market is AI and IoT are the top of the pyramid, and AI and IoT speaks to CXO, and we have industry solutions that we are working on with some of you here on the phone and some of our ISV partners. And we can cater for financial services and payment. We can cater for predictive maintenance in real-time manufacturing. We can cater for agricultural customers who require to look at optimizing watering and seeding of their field. And those solutions are industry-based solutions. And these are solutions that we are developing together with you. And this is how we lead the message about data modernization that I was talking about earlier. It's a great way to get a customer to understand the benefits that he can get from technology by connecting that technology to an industry challenge, right? And the audience for those are clearly CXOs, right? You are talking to the top people in companies. You are talking to people who are managing the fields or the crops. If I'm talking to a farmer, you are talking to financial or risk manager. If you're talking to a bank about better profiling their customers, and you are talking to potentially asset managers if you're talking about IoT and managing the life cycle of assets. And today we have industry sales plays available for you, and the team will walk you through that later. Analytics, as I mentioned earlier, you talk to Chief Analytics, Chief Marketing Officer. We are looking at predictive insights. We are looking at linking this to Power BI, and it's a vertical and horizontal sales play because you need both to talk both about the outcome that an industry can get as well as the harnessing the value of the data and making sure that the technology underlying this is obviously ready. If I go down once, Insights and BI, and we have solutions like Synapse I mentioned, right, and other Azure services. Those solutions are more targeted at developer, report authors, or financial analysts, and obviously those target audience are key audiences for you to go and talk to about the solutions, those services, and insight services that I was mentioning. And obviously then the data platform, which I mentioned earlier, open source databases or SQL or other proprietary solution databases that are available on Azure are clear, the target audience for those and for you are clearly database architect, database managers, and IT managers, right? So as you can see, the data and AI stories and sales plays that I mentioned earlier are all connected together. You start with IoT, talking about the industry, talking about the benefits that customer can get, and you go down to the data platform. And as I said earlier, and I want to repeat this, customer will not be capable of harnessing the full value of the AI and IoT, which are beautiful technology solutions, particularly with the upcoming 5G. We will be able to do even more than ever before, but they won't be able to do that unless their data estate and data platform is fully modernized to support that, okay? If I move to the next slide, so in terms of partner priorities and what we really want to ask you to look at, as I said, if I look at data migration, SQL remains the priority, and we really encourage you all, please, to look at your SQL base, look at how you can migrate those customers to Azure, and share with them the value and the benefits that they can gain by modernizing the data estates. Linux and OSSDB server migration, that's particularly interesting for the digital native, cloud native, or companies who are starting from scratch new projects around technology and decides to separate legacy from new. This could be obviously a potential target. And .NET websites and modernized .NET apps, right, on Azure, and at the same time modernizing the backend to make sure that the databases are supporting all those new projects, right? And this is really what we are looking at working together with you, right? And I want to say that the growth rate that we see in on-prem database in MEA is significant, right? We expect the market this year in terms of cloud data platform to grow by 28.1% year on year. So there is a tremendous growth to capture in these data estate markets that I was mentioning to you earlier in MEA, and I'm talking about MEA. This is very, very interesting for you. This is something that you might want to capture. At the same time, we expect the on-prem database market to decline by 5.7%, right? So I think you all, having been building the SQL install base and potentially working with other database technology in the past, make sure you look at this as one of your core priority for FY21. And if I look at analytics and AI, obviously I mentioned Synapse and Power BI. This is one of the low-hanging fruit, and there is a beautiful story around that. You will be trained later today. If you have any questions, reach out to me. I'll put you in touch with the OCP team in charge of data and AI, or I'll put you in touch with my team so that we can walk you through the benefits of having analytics and Power BI linked together. Obviously, migration of big data warehouse technologies such as Teradata and Netezza are obviously key, again, sales play first and priority for us together for this year. And then AI and analytics, I mentioned that. We have some industry plays and solutions, particularly in healthcare, financial services, as I mentioned, and manufacturing, that we will share with you that are potential door opener when you meet an executive in those industries and you want to open the the conversation around the business benefits that those technology can bring to them, right? And then look again in terms of your database, how to attach Synapse to Power BI customers. For those of you who have sold Power BI and who have customers using Power BI, understand what they are using Power BI with, what type of data feeding engines they're using to feed Power BI, and then make sure you align with our industry solutions, right? I would like to thank you very, very much for having given me this opportunity to talk to you today. I hope it was useful. I hope the presentation was useful for you. I didn't have time, obviously, to cover the details of some of the other priorities and sales pay, but I've tried to keep it very focused to the largest priority for you as partners. I want to, on behalf of the Azure community, I want to thank you again for the fantastic work you've been doing in the last years in bringing Azure to what it is today, and bringing Azure in the MEA region to be almost the #1 platform. And I want to thank you for that, and I'm looking forward to engaging with you on different customer projects. Thank you very much, and have a great rest of the Virtual Partner Summit with us. Thank you.